Okay, yeah, everybody's like, what the hell is going on? It's the last day of consensus, so I just thought I'd spice it up a little bit. As I said, this is Punk Rock Crypto. Punk rock is about standing up to the establishment when the establishment sucks. It is about breaking things. It is about going against the conventions and pop culture, and I do not think any industry does that better than crypto. That's why I'm in crypto, that's why I'll stay in crypto, and I'm sure that's what our panel also believes. But first, we have a very special pre-recorded video for you guys. So please turn your attention to the screens to the right and left of me. Nope. Please do not do that. Don't do that yet. Okay, well we can just
start the panel.
Yeah, we'll just start the panel. All right, so we'll start with Harry Halpin. Harry Halpin first met you with the W3C. He was working with the W3C to keep the internet radically open. After leaving the W3C, he's helped a number of activists in countries that are dealing with totalitarian regimes. And right now, he is at NIM Technologies, which is out of the Binance Labs incubator. Harry, I just wanted you to tell the audience a little bit about NIM Technologies.
Yeah, so effectively, you know, everyone's like blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. But one of the largest problems that any blockchain technology will face will be privacy. And privacy is not just, yo, let's throw a ZK snark on it, or even something more stupid like, oh, let's put a ZK snark inside your ZK snark, or whatever. What actually privacy is, privacy involves the entire system. And in particular, we're focused on layer 0. That's like the peer-to-peer thing that everyone forgets about. Because this does not matter what magical crypto primitive you just kind of pointlessly threw in your blockchain. What actually matters is that any powerful adversary, including the NSA, chain analysis, whatever, can just watch the network traffic. They can watch the peer-to-peer broadcast, and they can use that to de-anonymize and violate the privacy of any blockchain transaction. We currently do not have good solutions to this. Kovri and Monero fell apart. Tor is the best you're going to get for sort of web browsing and all of that, but it essentially is non-profit, voluntary, and we know we can get better privacy through mixed networking. So we've kind of tried to build essentially a mixed network, which is a level 0 solution, which basically does some things that Tor and VPNs don't do. They randomly permute packets, they delay packets, and they add cover traffic, and that basically destroys the kinds of pattern that the NSA or other global adversaries can discover in your network traffic. And then for blockchains which have crap privacy, which is like almost everyone except Zcash and possibly Monero, what we also provide is we provide an authentication layer which effectively uses anonymous authentication credentials based on quite fast pairing-based crypto to basically do privacy-enhanced authentication. And we kind of combine these two bits together to develop a holistic privacy solution. For me, that's a really big deal. I'm not a blockchain person, but I have worked in the actual, not cryptocurrency, but cryptography and privacy space for a bit, and before that on machine learning, and so obviously I understand traffic analysis. And the main issue that people don't understand is that before cryptocurrency happened, people all over the world have been targeted, including friends of mine, tortured and killed in prisons in places like Syria due to the fact that their digital fingerprints revealed who they were and what they were doing. And I do not think anywhere will, in the long term, given the general collapse of the global economy and the slow unraveling of the nation state, I do not think anywhere will be safe because we all know it's about to explode.
All right, well, yes, please. That was fucking epic there. We do have the video ready, so we'll just go ahead and play that for you guys and then get done with the panel. So yeah. Thank you very much.
Last Tuesday, an interesting thing happened. Binance was hacked, and as we know, $40 million or 7,000 Bitcoins was stolen. In that moment where they were hacked, there was a small window of opportunity where Binance could have picked up the telephone with a handful of miners all across the world, and they basically could have coordinated a new chain to reverse the transaction, giving them a cut of the funds that were stolen. So what this event shows us is that cryptocurrency is not simply based off of technology. It is also based off of political consensus. Last year, December 2017, I made a prediction when Bitcoin was at its height of $20,000 that it was heading for a crypto winter and a decline. I was ridiculed by basically everybody. Since then, we've experienced the worst downturn in the entire history of cryptocurrency. Everybody's expecting the market to go back up. And while there might be a few bumps upwards, there won't really be any kind of growth because there is no content. What is the goal of cryptocurrency? Its goal is to spread across the world. Anonymous digital black markets. Outside state control. How? First, we do not need the help of global capitals or regulators. We must declare our complete and total opposition to the old order. The old order that we are going to replace. Second, we must start to study ideas. Global geopolitics, the history of computers, philosophy of technology, and we need to put these ideas together to create a vision of the future that can inspire people. Third, we need to start to organize together. We need to stop to think about the here and the now, the little place or position that we've got. We need to think towards or aspire towards our goal, a goal that is way bigger than anything we have now. We're not even close to reaching our objectives. But there is a good news, because this system is heading towards collapse. It cannot sustain itself. Already, nationalist groups, religious extremist groups are trying to move in for the kill, to try and expand those cracks into vacuums that they can occupy. It will collapse. And if we have prepared the groundwork, when that opportunity presents itself, and it will, we will be able to make use of that. Because we are the opposition.
So I don't know if you guys know who that was. That was Amir Taki. He's probably one of the biggest badasses in crypto right now. As a programmer, he's built a number of crypto startups or projects, so Dark Wallet and Dark Market being one of those. As a revolutionary, he worked alongside the Kurdish in northern Syria, or he fought alongside the Kurdish in northern Syria. And he's currently in the process of opening some radical academies throughout the world. He's punk rock as fuck, no doubt. Harry has worked pretty closely with him. I want to move on to Ameen, though. Ameen is the co-founder and CEO of SpankChain. If you guys don't know SpankChain, you definitely should. This is a platform for adult entertainers, for camming, for tit contests. They really have a lot of fun. Probably one of the most underrated companies in crypto right now because they have a working platform. And this type of crypto privacy has been integral to adult entertainers because they typically have their bank accounts closed when the banks find out that they're adult entertainers. So I just kind of wanted you to talk about why you decided to go this route. Like, what was the inspiration for SpankChain?
I don't really like banks. One of my favorite things to do when I go to a new city is just look around, and without fail, all of the tallest buildings are always banks. And it really excites me when I think about what's going to occupy those buildings when the banks are gone. And to me, that's a lot of what cryptocurrency is about. It's about evolving our sort of digital payment infrastructure. And so it seems sensible to ally with groups who are also similarly ostracized by the existing legacy financial system and build them tools and infrastructure that they can use and control. So with that in mind, we started SpankChain in order to bring crypto to one of the most underserved communities in the world with respect to having access to banks and financial institutions, because as Bailey said, the performers get their PayPal accounts frozen, shut down, credit card, they can't use normal credit card merchants. And the sites that they do use, because they sit in the sort of privileged intermediary position, take huge fees. So for the very sophisticated offline tipping functionality on MyFreeCams, they take a 50% cut. And that's sort of ridiculous to anybody who knows anything about crypto, because as soon as these performers all have Ethereum or Bitcoin or other crypto accounts, then they'll be able to accept money without any intermediaries for basically nothing. And so that, SpankChain was founded about 1.5 years ago. We have a small team based in Venice, and we're building these things. We have Spank Live, that's our campsite, so you can deposit money in any crypto and then tip using Ethereum micropayment channels. And then the performers will cash out in Ether. And we're also building Spank Pay, which is a product for merchants to accept crypto. Yeah.
Right on. Cool. Yeah. So that's a use case that I see here in the US. It's been relatively popular. You guys have plenty of users. So about 2,500 miles south of us, there's a fucking disaster going on. I don't know if you guys have heard. It's Venezuela. And probably the best person to talk about Venezuela and how crypto helps the Venezuelans right now is Jorge. So just tell us a little bit about what you do and sort of what kind of adoption you've seen of crypto in Venezuela.
Yeah, sure. Well, when you live in a country when the government blocks you to buy any kind of foreign currency for almost 2 decades, the people simply look for options to live, because you don't have the ability to buy dollars, to buy any kind of foreign currency. And the people don't believe in the local currency, it's simple as that. I remember like yesterday when I read the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto, was, I don't know, like epiphany. Simply blows my mind. And when I read it, I think this is a real solution for a country, because the people don't have any kind of ability to have foreign currency. And I start mining, like more of the people in Venezuela. And that's the reason, because I see a lot of projects with Venezuelan involved, because knows the technology from the beginning, from the deep, how works the blocks, how works the transactions. And eventually we start allowing the people to buy and sell local currency, cryptocurrency with local currency. But at the end, the inflation simply burns the money. That's the reason, because we moved to Panama, and in Panama start with the ATM businesses, the cryptocurrency ATM business. What's great, because we start looking for new use cases. At the beginning, the idea was only sell crypto to investors, to people that want to speculate. But one day, a lady of around 60 years old come to one of our locations with a piece of paper, a simple piece of paper and a QR code, and tell to us, my son in Venezuela tell me that with this piece of paper, I can send money to him. Well, we check the paper with a valid address, put on the machine read the code, and the lady put $20. And 2 minutes later, his son's called back. Well, it was very touching, because the lady says that was investigating for around 2 weeks, trying to how to send money to his son, and was scared, because a lot of the information that you have in the internet is very confused. When go to the machine, was clear for her. That's the reason, because we see the opportunity to help to the rest of the region using crypto. Right now, we are allowing people to accept cryptocurrencies. Merchants, we have the bigger retail merchants in Venezuela. Today, we start with other companies like Samsung in Venezuela too. Well, we are getting real use cases for crypto.
Cool, right on. So a lot of this seems to hinge on education, which is not very punk rock, but still like needed. Does the punk rock narrative in your mind help or hinder? And you guys are probably on the side that the punk rock narrative could, but maybe it just kind of confuses people. Ameen, we'll start with you.
I think it's one of the common themes in the SpankChain community. It's got a couple thousand performers, enthusiasts, crypto people that all hang out in our Discord channel. And one of the common themes is that we all see ourselves as sort of revolutionaries, pioneering new modes of economic operation, and a lot of that takes education. And so we have a lot of guides that the community has generated that we've made. And so, I have porn stars in my Discord, like teaching other porn stars how to use decentralized exchanges like Radar Relay. And that's pretty cool. Because then, I talk to a lot of people in crypto and they like still haven't used decentralized exchanges. And then they look at, porn stars and they're like, these guys don't know, how to use technology. And it's like, well, you'd be surprised because their lives kind of depend on it. Not like their lives, but their livelihoods depend on this, getting this right. So they're quite motivated. And so I think what we thought about when we wanted to spread the word about crypto was like, this is sort of a network of minds. It's going to take some time to like propagate, but like the ideal end state is everyone knows about crypto, everybody understands it. So you want to try to find these like first couple people that are sort of self-identify as early adopters, revolutionaries, and really buy into the crypto punk ideology, and then use them as a showcase and also to show everyone else that this is something that they too can figure out and achieve, and then spread it from there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so like the internet it's kind of another good example, and PayPal is also a fine example, like where adult entertainers were the first people who were sort of using PayPal, and then PayPal started freezing their accounts and kicking them off, and so now we have SpankChain. So one of my biggest complaints about the industry is how we're moving towards looking more and more like the traditional financial services systems, just traditional systems all around. I guess, Harry, like, how do you feel about that, being a sort of more revolutionary type?
Yeah, so, our software was built to defend, funded by the European Commission to build alternative, more powerful alternative to Tor and VPNs with better privacy. The use of this software was not only imagined to be for governments and companies, but also for human rights activists, for revolutionaries, for people who could be killed if their transaction was de-anonymized. And this is obviously good, but there's this fundamental problem. And I think Eric Meltzer was maybe the first one that pointed this out to me. He said, the problem is that, most of the governments and traditional institutions are morons. They're relying on, off-the-shelf nonsense from IBM and Microsoft, and they're on these huge, contracts. And human rights activists, to run a privacy-enhanced technology requires funding. It requires, people need to be incentivized to run the technology and distribute it. It can't be centralized, otherwise it's easily taken down. And human rights activists they're too busy avoiding dying and being in prison to worry too much about money. They have wider problems. And what Eric Meltzer pointed out, which he said, well, the problem is you have grassroots users, people who want to use this technology, but they have no money. But we're living a very special historical moment where, due to this giant craziness in the last few years, with sort of speculation in the cryptocurrency space, we have a new class of investor. People who need privacy themselves, who might understand it, who have some of the cypherpunk ethos, at least in theory. And to bring these two groups together, the people who really need life or death privacy, with people who need privacy for financial freedom, we thought would be a wonderful experiment. But what we found over the last year was that actually, while everyone is more than happy to do lip service to supporting privacy and human freedom, everyone says, they're happy to invest in, a bunch of kids at Stanford who've never designed a system before, but oh yeah, we're gonna put some ZK snarks in it, baby, or something dumb like that. The real fundamental issue is that basically most of these traditional venture capitalists that we talk to, they're not going to put their money where their mouth is. They don't actually have the gonads, be those ovaries or balls, to actually throw down for privacy. They're like, oh, there's no business case. But you don't know what the case for privacy is until it's too late. Tim Berners-Lee noticed that mass surveillance is as dangerous as a nuclear weapon. And all attempts, which I participated in very heavily for the last few years, to regulate it and legislate it, have failed. There is no choice but to use privacy-enhancing technologies and cryptography intelligently to defend privacy. And the fact of the matter is the only people who would support us were people from outside the United States. People from Asia, our primary backer is Binance, our dark lord CZ, was more than happy to help out. People from Europe who remember how terrible the Holocaust was, who are not, people from Eastern Europe who remember the Stasi. Americans have no memory of this, but I can bet it will come. And we need to build this technology today because you cannot build it at the last minute.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, sorry, excuse me. Getting a lot of claps for you, man. Great stuff. So Jorge, I wanted to sort of go to you on that. So first of all, first question, has, the Venezuelan government sort of moved to try and stifle what you guys are doing? And two, do you see the Venezuelan people as very open to building these privacy enhanced networks and technology because they have just dealt with Maduro, and they're still dealing with Maduro?
Yeah, well, obviously the government don't want that you create a parallel economy. And that's the reason, because at the beginning of this mining stuff, the government start chasing people that has mining operations. But it's not only exclusive of Venezuela. For example, Bolivia and Ecuador 4 years ago totally banned cryptocurrency. But it's interesting because the result was the operations double and triple, because some days the people get aware that something that is called cryptocurrency. It's the same when the government of Venezuela launched the Petro, for example.
Right.
No one's know about the cryptocurrency, but a president of a government eventually one day talks about something called cryptocurrency. That's the good part of the history, because a lot of people know about it.
Oh, that's really interesting. So the Petro was like a farce, correct? Like nothing's happened with the Petro.
That's right, but
Okay.
the good point of this, and I always remind to the people that, is you have a population of 30 million people that eventually from day by night know something or hear something about cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
the good side.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, just very quickly before we take some questions from the audience, I want to save time for that. Harry, I'll start with you. Is there a company, maybe like a sort of underground company, that you think is like super punk rock and really doing it in the space right now? Besides your own, don't say your own.
Of course not. I've self-promoted enough. I do have a high amount of respect for the cryptographers of the Zcash Foundation.
Okay.
I have a high amount of respect for the Monero community, which rapidly fixes bugs and releases new versions of Monero. And I have a high amount of respect for Blockstream. I actually think Adam Back is doing what the Lightning Network and Liquid will eventually, looking at Taproot and the Schnorr signature proposals put out by Peter, will eventually get privacy into Bitcoin. And those are going to be monumental shifts. And those shifts need to happen, and we need to support those companies. I think, I mean, ideally, Ethereum gas prices go down such that pairing-based crypto is not retarded on Ethereum as well. But, I don't really see that much else right now. Everything else looks like a farce.
All right. Ameen, what about you? You see any companies you really think are doing it?
I don't think that the things that I'll think are doing it are going to look like companies.
Well, maybe they don't. Yeah, that's fine.
Like, I'm really optimistic about like pseudonymous DAOs, where people just start self-organizing around their common interests without necessarily providing any sort of identity. And if there are private DAOs, like maybe we get gas prices low enough to get some of these things in, or do it on some sort of sidechain, that would be really interesting. One example of something that's like not quite this, but close, is like the FOMO 3D, proof of work 3D stuff, where they're just using, like, most people are like, crypto is a Ponzi, whatever, right? And then these guys are just like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a Ponzi scheme, we're gonna staple a pyramid scheme on top of it, and then add a lottery and create like this enormously powerful incentive scheme to coordinate people at massive, unprecedented scale and speed in order to do whatever. And I think that model can be used for a lot of things. So.
Yeah, totally. Jorge, do you have a company, person, project?
Yeah, well, I always say is that this technology is going to be adopted first in the regions when you don't have options. The people here have Venmo, have PayPal, have MasterCard, American Express. But 60% of the population of Latin America or 80% of the population in Africa don't have financial services. For example, Dash is a currency that is working close to this and in the field. offering real payment solutions. We are looking very, very close the work of these guys.
Cool. All right. Do we have questions from the audience? I think there's supposed to be someone walking around with a microphone, but I can also just come to you. No one has questions. We've answered. Oh. Is there? I'll just come to you. No big deal. There you are.
Thanks. Jason Brett from the Value Technology Foundation. I think that this is the most interesting panel, having been here for the last 3 days, so thank you. One of the things you mentioned, and I think it's very interesting when we look at the Revolution 1776 and what people did then and how they might be perceived in today's environments. I think it's also very brave, sort of the statements that you're making and what you're saying today. My question is just, there's the government factor, but as this panel's going on, there's also what's called the rise of the corporate coin, which I was, but then changed as I heard. This was such a great panel. So how do you see corporations that are adopting quote unquote corporate coins as a threat to what you're trying to do with, set up a new establishment of money and payments in the world that doesn't involve banks? Because certainly the government and the policy is one thing, but being a DC insider, there's definitely a lot of push from companies and their agendas as well.
Cool. Thank you. Any one of you can answer that. Harry, maybe?
Yeah, I can address that. So we are going to see traditional large companies and nation states, of course, use blockchain technologies. I mean, our founding scientific advisor who designed the MixNet system, Lupix, with his graduate student Anya, who's luckily still working with us, George Denises, was acqui-hired by Facebook to design the Libra. So, we're already, if we cannot, from the standpoint of revolutionary technology, if we cannot maintain our own people because we cannot pay them, we will lose. And there are very few people, a 20-year-old out of college cannot design good privacy-enhancing technology. It's too hard. Roger Dingledine, people who have 20 years of experience can, and if we lose these people, the major corporations and nation states, we will not have decentralized, radical privacy-enhancing technologies. Yeah. We have to keep our people, and we have to nurture these technologies, and we have to make sure that we do not just simply become another financial transaction solution, which is ran by the same few companies that currently run today, where they could just, to be honest, mostly just use a database rather than the blockchain.
Ameen, did you want to jump in there? So I don't know if you're seeing any government institutions or law enforcement sort of come to you and be like, look, you can't do business with these people. I mean, I think the adult entertainers thing is more of a moral, moral high ground for Visa and PayPal and those people.
Yeah, exactly. It's for us, for the adult industry, it's just a lot of moral grandstanding. The banks, it's basically illegal to deny the services, and it's against First Amendment rights, but they do it anyways. And same with Visa, MasterCard. A lot of the pressure comes from them, and it's the evangelical Christian right that wants to impose its will on everyone, and in order for us to be part of their what they consider good. So in some sense, at least, a diversity of things that are similar to banks, like Libra, like Zuckcoin, whatever, is actually potentially good for the adult industry, just because it might be easier for sex workers and adult performers to use those services, even if it's not blockchain based, and it might open some doors for people to explore. Now that said, I'm not gonna advocate for anybody in the adult industry to use something like Zuckcoin, because I think that a lot of the same sort of censorship issues will arise. Tumblr bans porn. This happened a couple months ago. I have no doubt that with the same sort of censorship that Instagram bans adult performers, they're going to have to shut a bunch of people down. But if 10 companies present these, it might be hard for them to figure it out. So maybe some performers slip through the cracks.
So we have time for one more question, but these guys are going to be around. They really are. I think you raised your hand? Yeah, okay.
So a question is for you, Jorge. I'm just really curious about what you were explaining, this sort of remittances through your machines in Venezuela. Do you have like some relative number of how many people have you served or how many people have been able to actually get their funds in Venezuela through yours or other platform?
Yeah, for now we have around 50,000 registered users, but the user base obviously is growing. The people that the expats that are around the world are growing and growing, and obviously the numbers are rising. Because actually, the case of the lady that I told you before, when the people go to Western Union or MoneyGram, the minimum amount is $100. And this lady only sent 20, because it's the only that have in the pocket at that moment. That is the power of the technology.
Right on, cool. Thank you so much for staying here. Give a big round of applause to your panel, please. And they'll be around, so come on.